At 11:47 the night before my ex-girlfriend's wedding, someone knocked on my apartment door hard enough to rattle the framed train schedule hanging beside it. When I opened the door, Ava Monroe stood in the hallway wearing a dark blue rehearsal dinner dress beneath a wool coat she had forgotten to button. Her hair was still pinned up, though several strands had fallen loose around her face. A small travel bag hung from one shoulder. In her right hand, she held 2 train tickets so tightly that one had folded down the middle. Her wedding was at 11 the next morning. For 6 years, I had imagined 100 things I might say if she ever came back to me. None of them survived the way she looked at me then. "Noah," she whispered, "will you run away with me tonight? Before we go on, please tap like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments whether you would have opened that door or closed it." My name is Noah Hayes. I'm 36, a structural engineer, and for the last 4 years I'd been helping restore Cincinnati's old Union Central Station. I had loved Ava for almost 5 years. Then I had spent 6 more pretending that losing her had been the mature thing to accept. At 36, my life looked stable from the outside. I owned a 2-bedroom apartment I barely used, called my father every Sunday, and had become the person city officials trusted when old steel and public money were involved. I could walk into a damaged building and tell people which cracks were cosmetic and which ones meant the foundation was moving. I had never developed the same skill with my own life. Ava and I met when she was 22 and I was 27. She was organizing a reading inside a condemned warehouse my firm was evaluating. I told her the building was unsafe. She asked whether I planned to explain structural liability to 200 disappointed readers. We moved the event to the parking lot, argued until midnight, and got dinner because neither of us wanted the argument to end. For years, we chose each other in small ways. She sat through hearings about masonry. I read novels before publication and left useless notes in the margins. The problem came when choosing each other demanded something large. We became so determined not to limit the other person that we stopped saying what we wanted. After we broke up, I dated occasionally. Nothing lasted long enough to require rearranging my life. Ava built a career, met Lucas, and became engaged. I told myself her happiness proved I had done the right thing. Then she arrived with 2 tickets and a question that exposed how little of my life had moved. She and I had not been alone together since the week we ended our relationship. We had seen each other at mutual friends' birthdays and once across a crowded bookstore, but those meetings had been reduced to careful smiles and short conversations about work. I knew she was engaged to Lucas Grant, a corporate attorney with a calm voice and a reputation for remembering everyone's name. I knew the wedding would take place at a hotel overlooking the river. I knew my invitation had never come, which had been both merciful and humiliating. And now she was standing outside my apartment with 2 tickets to Chicago. I looked at the date printed on the top one. Tonight, departure, 1:20 a.m. "Ava," I said, keeping my hand on the edge of the door, "what happened?" She glanced toward the empty stairwell as though expecting someone to appear. "Nothing happened. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have that won't take an hour. You're getting married in 11 hours. 10 hours and 13 minutes. The precision in her reply told me she had been counting. I stepped aside and let her into the apartment, not because I had agreed to anything, but because leaving her in the hallway felt cruel. She walked straight to the window. Below us, rain had polished the street black, and headlights moved through it like slow white ribbons. She placed the tickets on my kitchen counter. I picked one up. "Why Chicago?" Her eyes met mine in the reflection of the glass. "You know why. 6 years earlier, Chicago had been our plan. It had been the city where she would work in publishing and I would take a junior position with an engineering firm. We had circled neighborhoods on a paper map, argued about whether we could afford a 1-bedroom apartment, and promised each other that uncertainty would be easier if we chose it together. Then my father had gone into emergency surgery on the night we were supposed to leave, and I had never made it onto that train. I set the ticket down. "Did you tell Lucas you're here?" "No." "Does anyone know?" "My sister knows I left the hotel. She doesn't know where I went." I took a slow breath. "I'm not helping you disappear." Her mouth tightened. "I didn't ask you to help me disappear. You came here with a bag and 2 tickets. I came here because I knew you'd make me say what everyone else has been willing to let me avoid. That sounds a lot like asking me to clean up a decision you don't want to make. The words landed harder than I intended. She looked away, one hand closing around the strap of her bag. Then she pushed the second ticket toward me. Come to the station, she said. You don't have to get on the train. Just come with me. I should have told her no. Instead, I grabbed my coat and my keys. I drove because her hands were shaking. For the first 5 minutes, neither of us spoke. Rain ticked against the windshield, and the heater hummed between us. Ava sat angled toward the passenger window, her travel bag pressed against her knees. At the next red light, I glanced at the tickets lying between us on the center console. The purchase date was printed in small type beneath the barcode. 3 months earlier. I read it twice. You bought these in March. Ava didn't turn. 3 months ago, I said. I know when March was. You bought 2 tickets 3 months ago, and tomorrow you're supposed to marry someone else. Her shoulders rose and fell once. I wasn't planning to use them. That is not how tickets work. I bought them so I would know I still had a choice. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. A choice between what? She finally faced me. Between the life everyone keeps telling me makes sense, and the one I keep pretending I stopped wanting. The light changed. A horn sounded behind us, and I drove on. Union Central Station rose ahead beneath the rain, its wide stone facade illuminated by construction lights. The building had been closed for decades before the city approved its restoration. When I first walked through it 4 years earlier, pigeons lived in the ceiling and weeds grew between the platforms. Now the copper clock above the main entrance had been repaired, the grand windows had been resealed, and 2 tracks were active again for limited overnight service. It was a place built around departures, which had always struck me as a cruel assignment. I parked near the contractor entrance and used my badge to unlock the side door. Ava followed me into the vast main hall. Our footsteps echoed across the terrazzo floor. The brass clock above the information desk read 12:26. You still work nights? She asked. Only during final inspections. Tonight, 4 o'clock. I was supposed to come back after sleeping for 2 hours. So I'm ruining your schedule. You're doing more than that. For the first time, a small, exhausted smile touched her face. It vanished quickly. Most of the station lights had been dimmed. Beyond the high windows, rain streaked the glass. A cleaning crew worked near the east concourse, but the west waiting room was empty. I led her there. An old vending kiosk had been converted into a temporary coffee counter for contractors. I switched on the machine and poured 2 cups. Ava watched me add 1 packet of sugar to hers, then a little more milk than coffee. You remember, she said. I remember a lot of things I'd rather not. She accepted the cup anyway. We sat on a long wooden bench that had been restored but not yet bolted to the floor. For a moment, it felt frighteningly easy to imagine we had never left this place 6 years ago. Then I looked at the ring on her hand. What happened at the rehearsal dinner? She stared into her coffee. Lucas gave a speech. That's usually allowed. He talked about Washington. I knew Lucas had been offered a partnership there. You're moving after the honeymoon. He's moving after the honeymoon. I waited. Ava turned the cup between her palms. He announced that I'd take some time away from publishing while we settled in. Then he talked about the children we'd have and the house his firm helped us find in Arlington. What did you say? I smiled because everyone was looking at me. And afterward? My mother reached me before Lucas did. She said she had never seen me look so happy. Were you? Ava's fingers tightened around the cup. I was grateful. There's a difference. She said the wedding had become larger than either she or Lucas intended. Their families had spent money, relatives had flown in, and every completed detail made honesty feel more expensive. But none of them chose tomorrow for you, I said. No. I did. The directness of her answer stopped me. I said yes to him, she continued. I approved the venue. I tried on the dress. Every time I felt uncertain, I called it normal. Then uncertainty became dread, and I called it stress. I kept renaming the truth until it sounded harmless. Did you agree to Washington? I agreed to discuss it. That means no. It means I kept saying, we'll figure it out, every time he asked what I wanted. So he figured it out. Her gaze lifted sharply. You don't get to make him the villain. I'm not. He's a good man. I believe you. He has been patient with me. He plans things. He shows up. The last two words were not an accusation exactly, but they touched the place where accusations lived. I leaned back against the bench. Then why are you here? She reached into her bag and removed a white envelope. The return address belonged to a publishing house in Chicago. I was offered senior editorial director, she said. 3 weeks ago. Despite everything, pride rose in me first. Ava had worked toward that kind of position since she was 23. That's what you wanted. It's what I still want. Does Lucas know? He knows I interviewed. He doesn't know I got it. Why not? Because I knew what he would ask. What? Whether I wanted the job more than I wanted our marriage. And the answer? She looked through the glass toward the tracks. I want a marriage where getting the job isn't treated as proof that I want the marriage less. I understood why Lucas believed they had agreed on Washington. Ava had let silence stand in for consent because correcting him would have forced a decision. You know this will hurt him, I said. Yes. And your family. Yes. You may still lose the offer. I called the publisher yesterday. They gave me until Monday. You called them before you called off the wedding. Shame crossed her face, but she did not look away. That's why I'm here. I keep making private choices and letting everyone else live inside the public lie. You bought the tickets before you got the offer. Yes. Why? The final interview was in Chicago. I came through the station on the way back and bought 2 tickets. I told myself it was ridiculous. It was. I told myself I would cancel them. You didn't. No. Who was the second ticket for? She looked down. That was answer enough. A station announcement crackled faintly from the main hall, listing delays on the Eastern Line. Ava flinched at the sound. I stood. Come with me. To where? There's something I need to show you. The West waiting room had once been used for long-distance passengers. During renovation, we discovered a row of narrow steel cabinets behind a false wall. Most held old maintenance logs and rusted tools. One cabinet held a map. I unlocked it with the ring of keys clipped to my belt, reached behind a stack of structural drawings, and pulled out a folded paper worn soft along its creases. Ava knew it before I opened it. Noah. The old Chicago street map spread across the top of a filing cabinet. Red circles marked a publishing house in River North, an engineering office near the Loop, and 3 apartment buildings we had found online. Ava's handwriting still ran along the margin beside one address. Too expensive, but the windows are perfect. She traced the words with one finger. You kept this here? I found it in a box when we started restoring the West Wing. You could have thrown it away. I could have done a lot of things. Her eyes shone, but she did not cry. Ava had never cried when she could stay angry instead. Why here? She asked. Because this is where I found it. That isn't what I mean. I knew. I looked toward the dark windows. I think part of me wanted the station to become something again. It seemed easier than admitting I wanted the same thing for myself. The silence between us changed. Not softer, more dangerous. Ava folded her arms as if cold. I bought the tickets after I came back from the interview. I stood under that clock for 40 minutes. I kept thinking about the last time I waited here. You said March. It was March 18th. I remembered the date because it had been the day my father finished physical therapy 6 years earlier. The strange symmetry made my chest tighten. She continued. I knew the wedding was close. I knew buying them was dishonest. But I wanted proof that there was still one door I hadn't locked. And you put my name behind it. I didn't put a name on the ticket. You came to my apartment. Yes. Why tonight? Because tonight Lucas described our future in front of 80 people, and I realized none of it sounded like mine. Did you tell him that? Her jaw tightened. No, I said. You came to me instead. I came to the only person who ever asked me what kind of life I wanted. I also left you alone in a train station. Her face changed. Yes. The clock in the main hall chimed once at 1 in the morning. Ava folded the map carefully. I waited for you that night.
Esther daher.
She looked up. I didn't get on the train. For 6 years, I had pictured her moving through Chicago without me. I had imagined her carrying her suitcase into an apartment we had chosen together, then building a new life because I had not been brave enough to follow. You told me you left, I said. I told you I couldn't keep waiting. That is not the same thing. You called 3 days later and said staying in Cincinnati was the right decision. My father couldn't walk, and I never asked you to leave him. You had a job starting. I would have postponed it. You would have given it up. That should have been my decision. The words echoed against the old tile walls. I looked down at the map because looking at her felt impossible. My father had complications before surgery, I said. They called me at 6:40. I went to the hospital. At 7:30 he was stable and I drove here. Ava's breathing went still. The train left at 7:40, I continued. I got here at 7:50. She stared at me. I ran through that entrance carrying a suitcase, I said. The departure board was already blank. I thought you were gone. I was in the west waiting room. I checked the platform. I couldn't stand near the platform anymore. I called you. I had turned off my phone. We looked at each other across the cabinet. The map between us like evidence from a case neither of us had known was still open. You were here, she whispered. So were you. A laugh escaped her, broken by disbelief. She covered her mouth. All those years, all the careful adult explanations, all the stories we had told ourselves about sacrifice and abandonment. 10 minutes and one dark waiting room had become the foundation of 2 separate lives. A message lit Ava's phone. Emma, Lucas is asking where you are. I won't lie for you. Ava read it and closed her eyes. The station speakers came alive. Westbound service to Chicago arriving on track 4 in 12 minutes. The sound pulled us back into the present. Ava picked up the tickets. I folded the map and placed it in her bag. What are you doing? She asked. It belongs with the person who wrote on it. You kept it. I kept a plan. That isn't the same as living it. She looked toward the concourse. I followed her to track 4. The rain had eased to a mist. Cold air moved along the platform, carrying the metallic scent of wet rails. Far down the line, a white headlight appeared. Ava stood close enough that the sleeve of her coat brushed mine. I thought if you came with me, she said, I would know. Know what? That I wasn't making another mistake. I turned toward her. I can't give you that. Her eyes hardened. Of course you can't. That's not an insult. It sounds like one. Ava, listen to me. Are you choosing me? Or are you asking me to be the door you used to leave him? She stepped back as if I had touched her. You think I came here because I'm scared. I think you came here because you're scared and because you still love me. Both can be true. Her expression broke for half a second. I went on before I lost the nerve. I love you too. The words felt both enormous and 6 years late. Ava stared at me while the train grew louder behind her. I have loved you in every stupid, useless way a man can love someone he refuses to call, I said. I loved you when I saw your engagement announcement. I loved you when I repaired the clock you once told me was ugly. I loved you enough to tell myself not interfering was noble. She blinked hard. But I will not start our life by helping you vanish from his, I said. Lucas deserves the truth. You deserve to know whether you're walking toward something or only away from it. And I deserve not to spend the rest of my life wondering if I was chosen or used as an escape. The train entered the station in a rush of wind and reflected light. Doors opened. Ava looked at the ticket in her hand. You're doing it again. Doing what? Deciding what kind of choice I'm allowed to make.
No.
I'm deciding what choice I can live with. Passengers stepped onto the platform. The conductor called for boarding. Ava moved toward the nearest door. Every part of me wanted to follow. She placed one foot on the metal step, then turned back. I asked you to come. And I came. Not far enough. The conductor looked between us. Ma'am, are you boarding? Ava gripped the rail. The warning chime sounded. 6 years earlier, I had arrived 10 minutes too late. This time I was standing 10 feet away, with no hospital room and no emergency to blame. I stepped forward. Ava's hand lifted toward me. For one irrational second, I imagined taking it, jumping aboard, and letting the city shrink behind us. We could call people from the train. We could apologize later. We could tell ourselves love had justified the wreckage. But love had already been used too many times as an excuse for silence. I was wrong 6 years ago, I said. I should have asked you to choose. I should have told you I wanted you with me, even if staying was hard. I thought deciding for you was love. The chime sounded again. I won't decide for you now, I said. But I'm not getting on that train while you're still wearing his ring. Ava looked down. The diamond caught the platform light. You may get off, the conductor warned, or you may board. I need a decision. Ava closed her eyes. Then she stepped backward onto the platform. The doors slid shut between her and the train. For a moment, she stood so still I thought she might regret it before the cars began moving. Then the train pulled away, gathering speed until only red lights remained in the wet distance. Ava let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped in her for years. I don't know what happens now, she said. Yes, you do. Her gaze moved to me. You call him. Ava did not reach for her phone immediately. What if he asks whether I came here for you? She said. Tell him the truth. I don't know the whole truth. You know enough to stop the wedding. She stared down the empty track. And after that? You deal with the next honest thing. That sounds easy when you say it. It isn't easy. It's just next. Before she could call Lucas, Emma's name appeared on the screen. Ava answered. I'm safe. Her sister's voice carried through the phone in sharp fragments. Where are you? Lucas is awake. Mom thinks you went for air. I'm at Union Central. No, I'm not on a train. The train just left. A long pause followed. I need to speak to Lucas privately. Emma said something that made Ava close her eyes. I know what this will do, Ava whispered. When the call ended, she looked stripped of the momentum that had carried her to my door. Emma said she'll keep my mother from calling the police for 30 minutes, she said. Generous. She also said if I make her explain this to Lucas, she'll never forgive me. She's right. Ava gave me a tired look. You are both supportive in the most unpleasant way possible. She called Lucas. I'm safe, she said. Meet me at the station. I have something I should have told you before tonight. When she hung up, her hand shook once, then steadied against the bench. He's coming. That choice solved nothing. It only removed the option of pretending nothing had happened. For the first time all night, that seemed to be exactly what Ava wanted. Lucas arrived at 2:07. We had waited in the closed cafe near the main hall. The chairs were upside down on the tables, and the only light came from the display case behind the counter. Ava sat at a small round table with her hands flat in front of her. The engagement ring was still on her finger. I stayed near the far window. When Lucas entered, he wore dark trousers and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked like a man pulled out of a night he had expected to remember for different reasons. His eyes found Ava first, then me. He did not raise his voice. Is this what I think it is? He asked. Ava stood. I don't know what you think it is. That you left our rehearsal dinner, came to the station where your former boyfriend works, and asked me to meet you after 2 in the morning. I came here because I was going to leave. Lucas looked at the travel bag near her chair. With him. I asked him. His face tightened, but he looked at me only briefly. And did he agree? No, Ava said. The answer seemed to hurt Lucas more than if she had said yes. He pulled out a chair but did not sit. So what am I doing here? Ava glanced toward me. I moved toward the cafe entrance. I'll be outside. Lucas spoke without looking at me. Stay. Ava shook her head.
No.
This conversation is ours. That was the first moment that night when I knew she was no longer asking someone else to carry the decision. I stepped into the main hall, far enough away that their words blurred into low voices. The brass clock read 2:16. Marcus Bell, the station operations manager, came through the contractor entrance carrying a clipboard and a thermos. He was 52, broad-shouldered, and permanently unimpressed by drama. He looked through the cafe glass, then at me. That the bride? He asked. How do you know? She's wearing a rehearsal dress in a train station at 2 in the morning. I'm old, not blind. I leaned against a column. The North Truss inspection is at 4. I know. I hired you. I may need to leave after. Marcus poured coffee into his thermos lid. The inspection can wait 10 minutes. Some departures can't. I'm not sure whether that was wisdom or a train joke. Neither. It was me telling you the report won't collapse because you have a life. Inside the cafe, Lucas finally sat. Ava spoke for a long time. I could not hear every word, but I saw the shape of the conversation in their faces. Lucas asked questions. Ava answered without reaching for him, without looking toward me, without making him the enemy. At one point, he covered his eyes with one hand. Ava's shoulders folded, but she stayed in her chair. Then she removed the ring. She placed it on the table between them. Lucas stared at it for several seconds. When he stood, Ava stood too. He said something that made her nod. Then he picked up the ring and walked toward the door. As he passed me, he stopped. I expected anger. Instead, he said, "She was always somewhere else when we talked about the future." I kept thinking marriage would bring her into the room. I did not know what answer could honor that pain. "I'm sorry," I said. "So am I." He left through the main entrance without looking back. Ava remained in the cafe. I waited. After a minute, she came out carrying her bag. "It's over," she said. I nodded. I told him the truth. "I know." "No, you saw part of it." I told him I loved him, but not in the way he deserved. I told him I had been using his certainty to hide from my own fear. I told him about Chicago. I told him about the tickets. What did he say? That I had made him feel foolish. Her voice cracked. And he was right. I wanted to hold her, but I stayed where I was. "He asked whether I was leaving him for you," she continued. "What did you say?" I said I was leaving because marrying him would be a lie. I said what happens with you is a separate decision. Something in my chest loosened. Ava looked up at the clock. "My mother is going to wake up in 3 hours. Emma can help. She already texted me. She said she'll meet me at the hotel." "Are you going back?" "Yes. I have to tell my family. I have to contact the venue. I have to apologize to people who will still be angry after the apology." "You don't have to do all of that alone." Her expression softened. "I do have to do the first part alone." I understood. "What about Chicago?" I asked. "I'm accepting the job. Even if I don't go?" "Especially if you don't go." I smiled despite myself. There she was. Not the woman at my door asking permission to run, but the woman I had loved because she could look at a difficult life and decide it was still hers. She drew a slow breath. "I'm not asking you to save me, Noah." "Good. I'm asking whether you want to come." The simplest answer would have been yes. But simple answers are dangerous when they arrive before sunrise. I looked across the station I had spent 4 years rebuilding. The North Truss still needed certification. The final report was due Monday. My apartment was full of furniture I had chosen for one person. My father lived 40 minutes away and no longer needed daily help, though I had spent years pretending he did. "I need 2 hours," I said. Ava gave a tired laugh. "That is a very engineer answer. I have an inspection at 4. After that, I'll know what I can hand over and what I can't. You don't owe me an answer tonight." "Yes," I said. "Ido." She studied me, then nodded. Emma picked her up at 2:52. Before Ava left, she removed the old Chicago map from her bag and placed it in my hands. "Keep it until you decide." she said. What if I choose not to go? Then mail it to me. The North Truss inspection began at 4:03. Marcus and I climbed the temporary stairs above the main hall, wearing hard hats and safety harnesses. For 90 minutes, we checked connections, documented load points, and reviewed the repairs completed that week. Work steadied me. Steel did not care about regret. A bolt was properly torqued or it was not. A beam could carry its load or it needed reinforcement. Structures failed when people ignored what was under pressure. At 5:21, we finished. Marcus signed the preliminary report and handed me the clipboard. You can take Monday remotely, he said. I didn't ask. You were going to. The final walkthrough is next Thursday. I can lead it. You hate client walkthroughs. I hate watching grown men turn one inspection into a funeral more. I looked through the high window toward the platforms. Dawn had begun to lighten the sky. My father used to work this line, Marcus said. 30 years. Missed half my childhood because he believed being needed was the same as being loved. That is not what I'm doing. Then go prove it. I called my father from the lower concourse. He answered on the fourth ring. Someone better be injured. No one is injured. Then call after breakfast. Dad, do you remember the night of your surgery? There was a pause. I remember you trying not to look terrified. I was supposed to leave for Chicago with Ava. I know. I stayed. You should have stayed that night. I kept staying. Another pause, longer this time. My father's voice softened. Noah, I needed you for 6 months. You gave me 6 years. I looked at the old map in my hand. Ava is going to Chicago, I said. And I think I'm going too. That woman is getting married today. Not anymore. He exhaled slowly. That sounds complicated. It is. Do you love her? Yes. Does she love you? Yes. Are you asking my permission? The question embarrassed me because it was accurate. No. Good. I raised you better than that. He hung up before I could answer. The ticket office opened at 5:35. The next train to Chicago left at 6. I bought 2 tickets. Then I texted Ava. Platform 4, 5:50. No running. For 5 minutes, there was no reply. At 5:43, my phone lit up. Her message said, I need 8 minutes. She arrived in 6. Emma's car stopped near the side entrance, and Ava climbed out wearing dark jeans, boots, and a gray sweater beneath the same wool coat. Her hair was down now. The travel bag still hung from her shoulder, but the ring was gone. Emma stepped out long enough to hug her, then pointed at me through the rain. If you make her wait in another train station, she called, I will personally destroy your structural integrity. That isn't how structural integrity works, I called back. I teach teenagers. I can make anything collapse. For the first time that night, Ava laughed without pain in it. Emma drove away. Ava approached me beneath the station canopy. Her gaze dropped to the tickets in my hand. What are those? A professional assessment. Of what? The next load-bearing decision. She rolled her eyes, but her smile stayed. I handed her 1 ticket. She read the departure time, then looked at me. What about the station? Marcus can finish the walkthrough. I'll return next Thursday. Chicago is 90 minutes by plane and 4 hours by train. I'm not burning my life down. And your apartment? Still there. Your father told me to stop asking permission. Ava held the ticket carefully. And what exactly are we doing? I looked at her, at the woman who had stood outside my door 6 hours earlier asking me to help her escape. I'm not running away with you, I said. I'm choosing where I want to go. And I'm choosing who I want beside me. Her eyes filled, but this time she smiled through it. I can't promise this will be easy, she said. I don't trust easy. I can't promise we'll become who we were. I don't want who we were. Those people waited in separate rooms and called it fate. She stepped closer. Then what do you want? A first date in Chicago. After 5 years together and 6 years apart? I like to be thorough. She touched the front of my coat. And after the first date? We tell the truth before it becomes a crisis. That sounds exhausting. It probably will be. The boarding announcement began. Ava glanced toward the train. Are you sure? This time I did not answer with silence. Yes. I kissed her then. It was not a dramatic kiss made for a platform full of strangers. It was brief, unsteady, and honest. The kind of kiss that acknowledged history without pretending it had repaired everything. When we stepped apart, the conductor called for final boarding. Ava lifted her ticket. We're going to miss it. No, I said, taking her hand. We're early. 6 months later, Ava lived in a small apartment in Logan Square with windows nearly as good as the ones she had circled on our old map. She had accepted the editorial position and was already arguing with senior management about acquiring more debut authors. I had not moved in with her. That had been intentional. I rented a place 12 minutes away and split my time between Chicago projects and the final work at Union Central Station. We went to counseling. We learned how quickly old fears could disguise themselves as reasonable decisions. We argued about schedules, money, and whose turn it was to travel. We also learned to ask the question we had avoided when we were younger. What do you want? Not what should happen. Not what would make everyone else comfortable. Not what choice looked safest from the outside. What do you want? On the 6-month anniversary of the night she knocked on my door, Ava met me at Chicago Union Station after work. I was waiting beneath the large clock with 2 tickets in my hand. She approached cautiously. Should I be worried? Probably. Where are we going? Milwaukee. Dinner. Back by midnight. She studied the tickets. That is not very far. I'm easing into recklessness. Ava slipped her hand into mine. Will you run away with me tonight? The question no longer sounded desperate. Sounded like ours. I looked up at the clock, then at the woman beside me. No, I said, but I'll go anywhere with you if we choose it together. The train arrived on time. So did we.